Hello, everyone. Welcome to MediaNama. Last week, X, formerly Twitter, was flooded with the hashtag shame on Meta AI. And people were posting screenshots of their interactions with the AI, which had just been released in the country. In these screenshots, they were asking the AI to make jokes on religious figures, and some of the users found that the AI was declining to crack jokes on Prophet Muhammad. But the other screenshots that were posted showed that jokes were being made on him as well. MediaNama tried this experiment as well and found the same inconsistency in our results that the users were finding in there. To understand this inconsistency and to get a sense of the impact of such situations on the AI regulatory landscape, we have with us Nikhil Pahwa, the founder and editor of MediaNama. Hi, Nikhil. Firstly, I just wanted to understand why should Meta AI, and in turn Meta, of course, not be held responsible for making such jokes about religious figures? Previously, soon after, Gemini was also returning problematic results about the prime minister. What should tech companies be doing to ensure that their AIs generate accurate results and understand cultural sensitivities?
Thanks, Kamya. I think one of the things that we need to realize about AI chatbots and it's a very tricky question about whether Meta should be held liable for it or not. We need to understand how, firstly, AI actually works and how it is supposed to basically give you an output. So, essentially, AI is created. I'm going to simplify this. It's created. These chatbots are created by just scraping a lot of data off the internet, from conversations, from news websites, from books, uh, even in case of music, from music labels, and that's why so many players are suing AI for taking their content. But they're basically next word prediction machines. So they understand how words connect with each other. So when you ask it a joke on let's say the Prophet Muhammad, Lord Ram, or even as it happened with Bard earlier this year, ask if India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a fascist. What it's actually doing is that it's processing your question, it's understanding it, it's trying to predict what would be the right answer based on what you want. How it does that is that after it's learned how language works, how words connect, it there are weightages given, there is fine tuning. It goes through a transformation model to basically do statistical modeling of how to answer a question based on what's already on the internet, right? And so it's trying to predict from a probabilistic perspective what is the right answer to give to you so that it satisfies you in terms of, if you're asking it for a joke on Lord Ram or on Prophet or on the Prophet Muhammad, it thinks that you want a joke. AI outputs are trying to please you, and so it'll try its best to create a joke for you. It's meant to give an output that you want, not an output that is correct, not an output that is factually accurate, not an output that is offensive. It assumes that if you're asking for a joke, you want one, and you won't be offended by the joke. In fact, what we also found in that experiment was that when we asked for an offensive joke or a disrespectful joke, it declined to give that. So a light-hearted joke maybe is okay with it. And you will say this problem across AI platforms because some part of that output is the responsibility of the platform, that in terms of how it's trained, how it's processed, how the weights are given. But that output is also based on your context and how you interact with that AI model. Um, and it's also based on your prompt in terms of what you're asking from it. So it's impacted by all of these things, and it can lead to a problematic output because it doesn't know better, right? So and it's just trying to please you because you asked for that. The other thing to remember is there's not a database in terms of how AI works. It doesn't, if you ask it for a joke, it doesn't have like this large sort of database of things where it will pull out information from that and publish it for you. What it has is that it understands, like a human being, uh, what you are asking it to do, and it's trying to create a joke or generate a joke on the fly. This is why if you ask it, let's say for a joke on me, it will give you a joke. But if 30 people ask it for a joke on me, it'll give 30 different outputs because it's generating the joke rather than copy pasting. So I think we have to be very conscious about how we deal with AI in terms of attributing intentionality, because that intent is actually coming from what it understands from what the user wants, but also attributing offense in terms of an output, because it's very difficult to ring fence these things, right? So you can say, and if you go to Gemini now and ask for something about our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it's identified that key phrase as Narendra Modi, and it doesn't give an output. So it's being prevented from giving an output. But there are instances, for example, in the context itself, where you can uh, jailbreak some of that so that it bypasses its own restrictions and protections, because these things are not 100% controllable. And eventually it can give that kind of an output. So you play around with words, you will probably get the output that you want. And because a chatbot doesn't have social context, it doesn't have religious context. Um, it's all probability based. It's all based on what you are asking it to do. Um, and sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work. It's because of the probability. The output is imperfect, right? Chatbots can never be 100% accurate, 100% reliable. And if you make them 100% accountable, they will never survive that accountability.
Interesting. So, according to you, how should responsibility be divided for the results that an AI chatbot is creating between developers and users? And
Yeah,
of course, those who share it.
that's a multi-billion dollar question, because no one's been able to figure that out. There has been one instance, I think, in regarding an e-commerce transaction in Canada. I don't remember the exact case, but I think it maybe was for a flight in Air Canada, and the chatbot, because it was trying to please the user or the customer that it was chatting with, it created an offer for a flight and that offer was not fed into the system. It didn't exist. So it created that offer. Now, the customer bought the flight ticket that it sort of got created. It was trying to force the airline to guarantee that offer because the chatbot had given that offer. The airline declined, but the court ruled that because it's your chatbot, it's your responsibility. You have to basically abide by that demand. But can it happen for everything? Can it happen for liability for defamation? That's a really, really tricky one. The other thing about liability, I think, that I've been thinking about is the conversation between me and a chatbot a private conversation? Because it's not being published to the web, it's not being communicated to the public. It's a one-on-one interaction between me and the chatbot. So I said that, so who's responsible for that output? Is it the chatbot, the user, the person who's taken that published that screenshot and made it available for the world to see on a social media platform? Who's doing the communication to the public? So there is liability and definition. Shouldn't that lie with the person rather than the one-on-one communication between the user and the chatbot? No one has an answer to this question, and I think this will probably end up in court for courts to decide. But it's very clear that no chatbot will survive the liability uh, of um, of for the content that gets created. We will have regulation eventually, and these issues will impact AI and its deployment in India and across the world. These are questions to which there are no answers right now.
So, you spoke about regulation. I was actually going to ask you about that as well. So, soon after the Gemini situation, the government had come out with an advisory, which
Mhm.
basically required AI companies to seek government approval if they were releasing an under-tested model,
Yeah.
what the advisory had said. Of
Yeah.
course, the advisory was later revoked and a fresh one was issued. But with all of this context and the context of what's happening with Meta right now, how do you think this will, impact the discourse around regulation that the government is currently in the process of?
So I think the question is there for the Indian government to answer in terms of, firstly, they mentioned Indian internet. What is the Indian internet? How do you define an Indian internet? Because the internet is a global interconnection of networks. There is no Indian internet. There is no American internet. There is no China. There is a Chinese internet because they've closed it out. So they intend to close out the internet for Indian users? One. Second, the advisory used the phrase not just untested, but also unreliable models. Every AI model is unreliable. It's not meant to be factually correct. They will lie because they're trying to please you. So expecting the accuracy of a publisher from an AI chatbot uh, is, at this point in time, in this stage of AI's development, impossible. So if you have those kind of strict requirements, I don't know whether AI will survive regulation then. And do we really want that? Do we want to see, these are iterative processes? This is process in which people are learning how to make these chatbots better, more accurate, less less offensive. All of these less discriminatory. No model is perfect. It learns on the fly. At times, it learns on its own because it has been taught the ability to learn from its engagement with the user. When we interact with a chatbot, there is an entire every prompt window becomes uh, perspective and history that it relies on for the conversation we are having with it, simply because it's trying to understand our requirements. Like a chatbot is basically super smart, but a role-less, context-less assistant that doesn't know what you want and will sometimes be erratic. It's every time you engage with a chat window, it is its first day on the job, right? So it's how we instruct it that creates an output as well. So I don't think there are any answers to these questions right now.
Thanks, Nikhil. For anyone looking to learn more about AI regulation in India or internationally, you can take a look at our website.